Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and if you're new here today, why is it so great? Oh, let me start that over. First of all, I'm sick, okay? So I really, apologize if I sound terrible. And also that this video is late. I try to post on the weekend, but I was a little bit too sick to film anything. So yes, I'm gonna post today. And it's gonna be super scary stories. Sorry, brain fog. It's gonna be scary stories that I'm gonna read today on Reddit. And before I get into it, don't forget that if you want to write your own confession for me to read, the link will be in my description down below. Let's get started. The scariest part about this story is not the weather outside, but the fact that it's not even in English. And that's scary for me specifically because that means that I don't know what it says. I was trying to see if there was a translate button, but there is no translate button, so I'm sorry, we can't read that one. I'm gonna move on to the next. Remember, if this video makes no sense, it's because I am sick and I'm blacking out. The man who followed me home. I had just finished my evening shift at a small cafe in my neighborhood. It was around 10:30 p.m. and the streets were mostly empty. I was walking home alone, earbuds in, trying to distract myself from the exhaustion of the day. About halfway through my usual route, I noticed a man a few meters behind me. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe he was just heading in the same direction, but every time I changed my pace, he did too. Every time I turned a corner, he did as well. That's when the unease started creeping in. I tried to stay calm and focus on my breathing. I took a few turns down alleys. That's not a good idea. You could corner yourself. I didn't usually take, hoping he would lose interest, but he stayed. My heart was pounding, and I felt my hands shake. I debated calling someone, but I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of knowing I was scared or worse, make him act on it. I finally ducked into a 24-hour convenience store. I told the cashier what was happening and asked if I could wait inside until he left. Sure enough, I peeked outside and he was lingering across the street, watching the store entrance. I felt a wave of panic. He clearly hadn't noticed me step inside, but he was aware enough to wait. I ended up calling my brother, who was awake, and asked him to come pick me up. Okay, you're finally being smart. You're finally being smart. I waited in the store pretending to be on a phone call, keeping my eyes on the windows. When my brother arrived, the man immediately turned and walked away as if nothing had happened. I never saw him again, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched for weeks afterwards. I started carrying pepper spray with me, walking with a flashlight, and always letting someone know my route home. That night taught me that even familiar streets could become dangerous if someone has ill intentions. Is this person a man or a woman? It doesn't say. There's also no comments on this post, so that makes me sad. But I think you did the smartest thing that you could do, honestly. But don't ever go into I don't know, I feel like it's a bad idea to go into a dark alley if you're being followed, especially if it's the alleys with the walls at the end. They're blocked off and you don't know. You would accidentally corner yourself. Okay, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Whatever. Next story. Ignore my hair, you guys. I cut it myself and I did a terrible job because I shaved my head and then I grew it out and now it looks like this. And the layers are a little bit too short for the length, so it's giving Utah curls, you know? It's like giving Utah curls. Or mullet or something. That's not what I want it to give, you know? I want it to give wolf cut or bob or Sabrina Carpenter, but just ignore it. Just ignore it. I should have trusted my gut that night. ... I never thought I'd be this kind of person to share this. This almost got me story online, but this happened to me last week and I can't stop thinking about it. I was walking home from work around 11 p.m. Usually I take the same route. Okay, this is the same story as the one we just read. Sorry guys, I don't read these before. I just click on the title, based off the title. I don't read the actual story, my bad. Cut that out, cut that cough out, I'm sorry. Usually I take the same route, and it's quiet but safe. That night, though, I noticed a man walking behind me. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence until he started matching my pace. I tried crossing the street, taking a few turns, even ducking to a 24-hour store. Okay, same story. But he didn't stop. Every time I looked back, he seemed to be a step behind me, always out of clear sight, but knew he was there. Finally, when I reached my apartment building, I rushed to the door, fumbling my keys, and that's when I heard his voice. He was outside, whispering something I couldn't make out. I just slammed the door and called the police. They found him a few blocks away, just standing there, like he was waiting. I keep replaying that night in my head, and I still get chills thinking about what could have happened if I hadn't acted fast. Have you ever had that gut feeling that someone was following you and turned out to be real? I can't shake this experience, and it changed the way I walk home at night forever. Like, I hope they kept him in jail because now he knows where you live. It's just like, like for your safety, you probably should have called the police if you could before you get to your house, or like walk to a police station if it's nearby, because there's like you just showed him where you live. Now he knows where you live, so if he gets out of jail, he's gonna go to your house. I'm not trying to scare you or anything. Just get a dog or something. Get a really big dog. Get like a pit bull or Rottweiler. Unless you're allergic. If you're allergic to dogs, then get like a reptile, like a snake, and put it next to the door. So if like somebody comes in, you can just like throw the snake at them, and it would like freak them out, because nobody expects, if they're breaking into your house, that you're gonna get a snake thrown at your face. Okay, next story. Okay, I guess this story has a child abuse warning. Child abuse warning. If you don't like child abuse, you don't want to hear about child abuse, skip ahead. This is your last warning. This is a child abuse warning. Okay? Okay? Okay. I'm gonna start reading now. So if you didn't skip, that's your fault. Okay? Neighbors are acting suspicious and their children aren't aging. I was 4 years old when the Ambrosio family moved in next door. There was a mother, Valentina, the father, Paul, their 8-year-old daughter, Ree, and their 5-year-old son, Billy. How do you remember all of their names? Please don't tell me that I'm reading a fake story right now. This better be a real story, because you were 4 years old and you remember all these people names. I'm sorry, I don't know why I talk like that. Like, my grammar's usually, like, not that... I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna keep reading. Valentina was a tall, slender, golden blonde, and sociable, all sweetness and light and small talk. Paul was a dark-haired, blurry, taciturn. I don't know what that says. I'm always tailing his wife like a shadow. Billy was scrawny, clumsy, often sick, and prone to saying the weirdest things. But it was Ree that caught my attention, even skinnier and sicklier than her brother. She'd inherited her father's quiet nature, always vanishing into the background so she could read. And that was on the days that she was healthy enough to be out of bed. Like her mother, she had golden blonde and blue-eyed. Unlike her mother, Ree's left eye had a distinctive flaw, a single metallic gold spot just below the pupil. As far as I can remember, my parents, like the Ambrosio, had something of a crush on Ree. Your parents had a crush on this child? On your neighbor's child? Well, looking back, we didn't know much about them at all. They moved away just before I turned 5. I didn't think there was anything strange about it. It was just a tumultuous... Why are you using these words that I can't pronounce? Fuck you. Okay. Time in our neighborhood, with people renting houses and moving out just as quickly once the rent got too high. When I was 10, my parents decided to move as well. Unfortunately, I was just getting excited about the idea. Bureaucracy hits us hard. It seems like every time we're ready to start packing, there was another form to fill, and so my parents were left trapped indoors with their paperwork while I roamed the neighborhood, all of us bored out of our skulls. Then a week after we should have left, the Ambrosios moved back in next door. Maria and Billy were the first to arrive that day, clambering out of their car and marching up the driveway as if they never left. and immediately I knew something was wrong. Neither of them had age. Rhea was still 8, Billy was still 5. It had been years since I'd last seen them, but I could remember that they'd been bigger than me at the time. Now, I'd somehow outgrown them. And no sooner had I recovered from the shock, Valentina stepped out of the driver's seat, every bit as vital as she'd been 5 years ago, without lines on her face or the slightest trace of gray in her hair. She saw me peering over the fence. Instantly, her smiling face dropped into a stunned gape. Her mouth twisted into a scowl, and she looked at me with such venom in her pale blue eyes that I instinctively ducked out of sight, suddenly convinced beyond all rationality that she hurt me. She's after you because you know something, you figured it out. She could tell. You better hide. When I finally worked up the nerve to peek out again, she'd gone indoors, taking Paul and Billy with her. Rhea was just standing there, eyes wide with emotion I've never seen from her. Hope. Then Valentina stormed out onto the driveway, grabbed Rhea by the arm and dragged her indoors, hissing furiously at her as they vanished into the depths of the house. Come on, come inside. I'm sorry guys, I'm ruining the scary mood. A moment later, I heard the faint, unmistakable sound of Rhea screaming in pain. Oh my god, I'm sorry guys, I'm ruining everything. ... I didn't tell my parents what I'd seen. I wanted to, but something about it, the look of Biltra's hatred in Valentina's eyes filled me with such dread that I couldn't bring myself to talk about it. By the time I went indoors, I'd given myself a million different excuses to avoid telling them about it, even briefly convincing myself that the two kids weren't Rhea and Billy, but their cousins. Any excuse would do, even if it meant I wouldn't have to face Valentina again. Oh, that lady did scare the crap out of you then. Pussy. I'm sorry. But I couldn't forget or ignore the way she grabbed Rhea or the scream that I heard after she'd been hauled indoors. What about the hissing? Like she turned into a snake. So despite my fear, I kept an eye on the Embarseru house, trying to find a moment when I could talk to one of the kids without their parents noticing or Valentina appearing at the door to offer me a cup of cocoa. Okay, why would she offer you a cup of cocoa if she hates you now? Unless she's trying to poison you. One day, Valentina took Paul and Billy on a shopping trip, so I took the opportunity to sneak over, hoping to speak with the only member of the family left behind. In the end, I didn't get anywhere until I crept around the side of the house and found Rhea waiting for me at the back door. I immediately saw the gold flaw in her left eye, and any remaining doubts melted away. This was the real Rhea Imberso in the flesh, somehow still 8 years old. More unusually, her eyes were unfocused, the pupils widely dilated, her hands were trembling as she opened the door for me, and her forehead was glistening with sweat. At the time, I thought she was just sick, but now I know she'd been sedated to keep her under control, and it must have been taking every atom of her strength to just stay on her feet. And as she let me in, I saw that in her right hand had been heavily bandaged, completely obscuring her fingers. No sooner as I was indoors, she lost her balance, falling hard on her left leg and leaving a huge bloody scrape across her knee. But as I was helping her up and looking around for a band-aid, I saw the entire wound sealed shut, leaving behind nothing but bare skin and faint blood stains on her shorts. Once I recovered from the shock, I naturally wanted to ask questions, but before I could even start, Rhea put a hand on my mouth and hissed, "Shh!" Then she drew a notepad and pencil from her pocket. At the top page, she clumsily scrawled out, "Can't tell you, the house is bugged, she's listening." She paused, hope dawning in her unfocused eyes, and then wrote, "Easier to show you." She led me into the study where a large box of photo albums sat, ready to be unpacked and locked in a filing cabinet. Selecting the topmost album, Rhea opened it for me. Inside was a series of antique photographs, many of them dating to the late 19th century, and they didn't feature grandparents or great-grandparents, but Valentino Amoroso herself, just as glamorous as she was in the present. About the only thing different about her were the black robes embroidered with occult symbols that she wore in the oldest photographs. She's a cult. She's in a cult. No matter how far back the album went, Valentina never aged. She remained outwardly 30, as vital as ever. The same couldn't be said for everyone else. Before long, the most common of the photos was Valentina at funerals, mourning the death of another loved one, and looking more dispirited with every shot. So was she like a vampire or something? But she was out in the sun, so maybe she's not. But then her spirits reignited with a series of romantic photographs, climaxing with her wedding to Paul in 1935. Cast the enchantment on him the morning after. Valentina's handwritten caption now read, "Now we'll be together forever?" And then there was Rhea's first baby photo, dated in 1937. Paul had even gone to the expense of using color film to just capture the distinctive gold flaw in her eye. At this, I looked up at Rhea with a questioning look. I wasn't great at math in those days. Nobody is. Nobody is. Except me. I'm good at math, but the rest of you are not. But even I knew that she would be around 60 at the very least. Rhea understood at once and nodded. And to this day, I can't remember how tired she seemed in that moment. Billy was born in 1940. Judging by the next few photographs, he and Rhea enjoyed a very happily childhood. Trips to the beach, lavish family, Christmas parties, tree houses to elaborate to be built by normal parents, Halloween parties with impossible realistic disguises, and even a few shots of Rhea studying a huge leather-bound book captioned, "My Little Sorceress." Photo by photo, Valentina's mood began to change again. As Rhea turned 9 and Billy turned 6, their mother's expression soured with discontent, and very smiles she wore from them seemed a little more disappointed as the two grew older. Until, at last, there was a photo of a teenage Rhea leaving for college. The next day, well, next to her, a teary-eyed Valentina barely grimaced. The next few pages of the album were snapshots of Rhea and Billy's adult success, sent back home to Valentina, torn up in a rage, then hastily taped back together again. This came to an end in 1962 with a beautifully handwritten letter sealed and preserved in plastic. "Dear Rhea," it read, "I've considered your request, and now that I've realized I was wrong to speak so harshly to you. You have every right to pursue your own dreams, and I will be more than happy to teach you the secret magics, even if doing so means that you will leave the country to pursue your own research. Please come home to us, enjoy one last family dinner, and I will give you everything you need. Your loving mother." The album ended with 2 photos likely taken by Paul. The first was a shot of an adult Rhea, tall, graceful, confident, and dressed to impress. Like the game! I've never actually played that game. Valentina stood behind her, her hand faintly glowing, her face twisted in a hideous smirk. The second was a shot of Rhea, suddenly 8 years old again. Now her gigantic adult clothes draped over her like a tent, her mouth open in a scream of horror, and in the background, Valentina laughed triumphantly. "The family won't be broken," blurred the caption. "We'll be together forever now." Billy wasn't given the same formality. He was kidnapped on the way back to his college dorm, according to Rhea's notes, then tied to a chair before being enchanted and regressed. And this time around, the entire transformation was captured in no less than 30 snapshots. The next few albums were a chronicle of Valentina forcing her 2 immortal children to live out their second childhoods as she wanted them to. Again, there were Christmas parties, treehouses, books, and trips to the beach, but the joy was gone, as were the friends who'd once been invited. Worst of all were the photos of Billy looking progressively more spaced out, accompanied by the caption of, "Finally found the right drug. Now he acts his age. Pity there's no drug that can induce docility and preserve that bookish streak, or Rhea would be perfect." Ooh. But it wasn't until Rhea decided to show me the nursery where she and Billy slept I finally realized how nightmarish things have gotten for them, because that was where most of the punishments for being too grown up were enacted. After all, the only reason why Rhea had been able to escape this room and let me into the house was because Paul had drugged her instead of restraining her, not realizing that he'd gotten the dosage wrong. Outwardly, the Ambrosios nursery was just as bright and cheery as you expect for the children's room. But the door was clustered with locks and chains. There were handcuffs fastened to the bed frames, plastic sheeting on the mattress, and the top of the tall boy was clustered with pill bottles, glass vials, and syringes. And hanging from the ceiling was a curious-looking nursery mobile. Most mobiles would have had farm animals, fish, birds, or stars dangling from the strings of this. This baby mobile were 5 curiously fleshly shapes on fish hooks. I didn't realize what they were until I saw the fingernails. Heart hammering, I looked down at the bandages around Rhea's hand. By the way of a reply, she held up a notebook and made my run blood cold. Fingers take longer to grow back. Rhea wanted freedom. She explained as much in her notes and begged me for my help. She told me that she just needed me to sneak into the house after everyone was asleep and copy a few pages of her mother's grimoire, just enough to control her own age and force Valentina into a compromise. Once Rhea and Billy were chained down and sedated for the night, Valentina was in the habit of leaving the grimoire out of its safe in the study, especially if she had a few glasses of wine during her nightly research. If Rhea left the bathroom window unlocked for me, it'd be easy for me to sneak in, or so she said. In the end, I agreed to help, but mostly out of pity, but also because Rhea told me that my life was in danger. I would not help. I would not help. Like, she should have called the police and shown her fingernails. Like, why is she getting you to help her? She should call the police. After all, Valentina regularly faked IDs and moved her family so nobody would notice their immortality. My parents had screwed up by delaying their departure from the old neighborhood, leaving me as a witness. And Valentina had left quite a few inconvenient witnesses in shallow graves over the years. In hindsight, I never accepted any of the drinks she'd offered me earlier. So that night, once my parents had drifted off to sleep, I slipped out of bed, armed myself with a disposable camera, and snuck out through the back door and crept over to the Ambrosio house. The bathroom window had been left unlocked as promised, and after years of climbing trees and shimmying up walls in my spare time, it didn't take much effort to scramble over the sill and into the house. I still remember the deathly silence in the halls as I tiptoed into the study, and how the shadows seemed to bend and ooze around me. Of how I froze at every pause in the muffled snoring from the master bedroom. Of how I tried with all my might to think of exactly how Valentina would kill me if I got caught. Somehow I made it to the study without being noticed, and sure enough, Valentina's grimoire was there on the desk exactly how she left it. As soon as I thought that nobody was awake to hear the door being shut behind me, I turned on the desk light, leafed through the book until I found the pages that Rhea was looking for, and photographed each one with the disposable camera. Once I finished photographing everything Rhea had asked for, I flicked off the light and crept out the house. And right on time, too. Paul had just gotten up for a glass of milk, and if I'd left a moment earlier, he'd have seen me leaving the study. And because I was there just in time to catch a glimpse of him heading into the kitchen, I could see he was ready in case Rhea or Billy ever escaped from the nursery. He was armed with a cattle prod. What is a cattle prod? Is that like a gun? The next day I got the photos developed. It cost me most of my pocket money. Okay, why didn't Rhea give you money for that? Why did you have to pay for that? Sorry. You're being a good person. It cost me most of my pocket money, but I was just glad that nobody at the shop asked questions about the content. Then while Rhea and Billy were playing outside, Valentina was distracted indoors. I slid the photos through a hole in the fence for Rhea to pocket. It was a momentous occasion because it was the first time in 5 years I'd seen her smile. She even broke her silence long enough to whisper, "I won't forget this, Tom. I owe you more than you could possibly imagine." I don't know how she managed to hide the photographs long enough to learn from them, but I was expecting the results to be impressive. I was thinking that the confrontation between Valentina and Rhea would be a magical duel right out of Hollywood, to the point that I spent the next few days waiting for a glimpse of the fireworks. But in hindsight, I now know that Rhea wasn't going to confront her mother about anything. After all, the last time she'd given Valentina the benefit of the doubt, she de-aged Rhea back to childhood while her back was turned. Why risk giving her a chance to strike first? So I woke one morning to find the house next door eerily silent. After spending nearly an hour watching for any sign of activity, I crept over for a closer look. The front door had been left hanging open. The filing cabinets and the safe had been emptied. Valentina's wardrobe had been raided and the car was gone from the driveway. Of the Imbressos, there was no sign. After that, my family and I moved out of the neighborhood and settled in Vermont, and my life returned to normal. Years went by. I did well in high school, went to college, got a job, began winning promotions, and eventually got a small house of my own at a dirt cheap price. No family, though my encounter with the Ambrossos permanently soured my notions of marrying and having children. And then last month, I got new neighbors. I saw them Saturday morning, trudging to a stop in the driveway of the house next door, and peeling out of their van, family with no less than 12 impressively diverse children, ranging from age 14 to 3 months old. Also, for some reason, 5 of them were dressed as pirates, complete with eye patches. The mother and sole parent looked uncannily familiar. Tall, dark-haired, confident, perhaps 30 years old, and heavily pregnant. Just looking at her reminded me of the photos from the 1960s for reasons I couldn't quite explain. So she's stalking you? But it wasn't until she walked up to say hello that I saw the distinctive gold blemish on her eye and finally realized why she seemed so familiar. Rhea winked at me. "I told you I owe you more than you could possibly imagine," she whispered. Then she walked off to shepherd her children indoors, pausing only to beckon me to follow. So I did, watching in awestruck silence as my old childhood crush went about settling her family into their new house with the kind of speed that only a magician can manage. She had learned a lot in the years since I'd last seen her. I realized that the house's internal dimensions warped and expanded around us. But shocked as I was, it didn't take me too long to get suspicious about Rhea's children. After all, the way she jumped to the attention of whenever they spoke and flinched whenever she raised her voice was concerning enough, as was the curiosity mesmerized to look to their adoring gazes whenever they huddled around her. And then I saw the eldest child was a dead ringer for Billy Ambroso at 14. I knew there could only be one explanation. "You said you wanted to be free," I sighed. "I did," she admitted, "but in the meantime I had to keep Mom and Dad under control, help Billy recover, and try and make a life for myself. It was easier to keep them young and weak. And after a few years of failing to make it in the legitimate world, I realized that I missed out on too many opportunities, too much history I could have thrived in. Rhea offered me a sad smile. In the end, I realized that everything I'd been through at mother's hands, what I wanted more than anything else in the world, was power to take back what I'd lost with interest. Magic gave me the power, true, but being a parent gave me so much more than that. There's no drug in the world as pure and rapturous as the fear and love of a child for their mother. She giggled, actually giggled. Now I know why so many cult leaders have their followers call them father. I swallowed hard. But where did these children come from? I asked nervously. Who were they? Oh, drunks, addicts, petty criminals, nobody will be missed. What is this? What? What is going on? Well, maybe one or two cops who came to investigate the disappearances, and one nosy little imp from Child Protective Services. But it doesn't matter. I'm a better sorceress than Mother ever was, and for some one of my talents, laws and violence are no concern. Besides, she added, it's not as if anyone can kill me, is it? Girl, what? And you're just gonna keep adding to the family? You're just gonna keep making random people immortal and de-aging them into children? Just for the sake of feeling powerful and loved? Why not? With my powers, I can feed, house, clothe, and entertain hundreds of them without paying a cent, maybe even thousands. And if I don't, well, I can't die either. So, that impish giggle again. Rhea paused and glanced at one of the younger children. Paul, she called, pushing a cooler towards him. Could you put this up in the nursery? The kid who had once been Rhea's father took the cooler with some difficulty. Like quite a few of the kids, he was dressed as a pirate and something behind his eye patch seemed to be hurting him. He kept scratching it and worrying about it. This bitch is crazy. She's insane. It wasn't until I shuffled into the nursery and opened the cooler that I realized why. Inside was a baby mobile, but thankfully, this one thing didn't have fingers hanging from it, unfortunately. It was looking back at me. 5 newly extracted eyeballs hung from the mobile by the optic nerves, taken from 5 kids now dressed as pirates. And this crazy lady is your new neighbor. I was at my limit and ready to make a run for it, but there was one other mystery that needed clearing up. Where's Valentina? I asked, almost dreading the answer. That's the beauty of magic, Rhea mused artfully. Once a subject's immortal, I can control their age in the way I please. Where is she? Rhea didn't answer, just smirked and gently stroked her swollen belly, delighted by the faint kicks from within. So, you took your mother and you put her in your belly, so now you're her mother, but she's also your mother. That makes sense. And that was my cue to leave. I've heard enough, and frankly, I didn't want to hear Rhea's explanation. I didn't even want to imagine it because my first visit to the Emburso house had left me with more than enough nightmares already. Paul reached out for me as I left, clutching pathetically at my jacket. Once upon a time, he'd been a hulking giant of a man, the terror of Rhea and Billy, and even me. Now he's 6 years old and tiny for his age. Kill me, he whimpered. Kill me! I muttered with a half-hearted apology and pulled away, running for the door without looking back. I wouldn't have known how to help him even if I wanted to. I wish my confession could have ended here. But 2 days ago, I was gardening, trying to distract myself from my new neighbors, when I fumbled the pruning shears and accidentally sliced my left arm open. And before my eyes, the wound healed in a matter of seconds. I don't know when Rhea cast a spell of immortality on me, but that's the only thing that could explain it. She said she owed me for freeing her. Did she repay her debt by making me immortal and leaving me to my own freedom? Or is her idea of a reward a place in her family, preserves an eternal childhood, and any minute I'll shrink back down to 10 years old? I don't know, and I'm not sticking around to find out. I don't need to worry about a living relatives, forging IDs, and what I'll have to do to stay sane, or even if Rhea will follow me. I just need to get the hell out of here before the worst transpires. All I leave behind is this confession of the role I played in unleashing the world on the world. And Warning to avoid her at all costs if you see her. Hopefully this description will be enough to save you. If not, there's room for another child in the family. That was such a long story. I don't know. I'm a little scared from that. I say, like, just kill yourself at this point, because she has so much power that she will find you no matter where you go. But actually, you can't kill yourself because you're immortal now, so I'm sorry. I can't help you. There's nothing I can say that can help. Okay. Since that was such a long fucking story, oh my god, I'm going to read a very scary story that I picked out, but it's a lot shorter. This is going to be the last one, I promise. Attempt at establishing boundaries with mother-in-law gone horribly wrong. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law have done inappropriate things to me, so I decided to establish some distance between me and them. They only noticed after a year, and my husband admitted to them that I established distance because I was uncomfortable. After hearing this, mother-in-law cried hysterically and made herself the victim, telling my husband she's going to kill herself and that I'm a traitor, etc. My husband blamed me for tearing his family apart. He apologized for saying this later. He has since been going to see his mother 2 times a week to comfort her. He goes on a weekday and usually on the weekend. During the weekend, he's there for 8+ hours comforting her and comes home generally upset with me. We're in couples therapy where he himself has explained his perspective to our therapist, and our therapist told him he needs to have better boundaries with his family and that it's highly inappropriate the way his mother has treated me. When he visits his family during the week, it's generally a shorter visit and doesn't cause many issues. But the weekend visits make me upset because they become the focus of our weekend, and he generally comes home upset. Especially today when there's a snowstorm in NYC. He still wanted to visit his mother despite me telling him that it made me anxious for him to have to go out in the storm. He was angry that I had an issue with him going. Am I being controlling? I'm so confused by this, and I feel like I leave every convo feeling like I was in the wrong. Girl, please leave him. He's freaking me out. Like, just leave. Just leave. Okay, you guys, I'm done. I physically could not even read that story normally because I have been reading for so long. I'm sorry. This video has to end here, and I'm done reading. I